So, hi everybody. Welcome to Discover Energy Work. I'd like you to, number one, is subscribe to the channel, and we've got great people coming up today. I've got a fantastic guy. He's a friend of mine, Stuart. He's a psychic entertainer. He really knows what you're thinking, yeah. And he is also an incredible hypnotherapist, and I did some sessions with him that really helped me in quite a troubled time. And I'd say he's like a wayfarer on the path. We've spent quite a lot of time together, haven't we, Stuart? We've done some control remote viewing. We've looked into that, and I've been on your podcast, Mysterious Worlds, which is a great podcast. So you should definitely check that out. So, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. That was a lovely introduction. It's funny when people ask, how are you doing now? It's like, I almost feel conflicted to say I'm good. I am good. But things are so weird for everybody that it's hard to just stand behind that statement. But I am good. Things are okay. And,
right. Yeah,
I'm taking a moment every day to let go of things that are stressful that I know won't always be there. So,
right.
As everyone has to, it's a thing you've got to do. But it's interesting seeing the world change, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how everybody handles not being on high alert anymore once we go back to some new version of normal.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to what that's going to become.
I think there's a joke that like Christmas has come early, like families have got to actually spend time with each other, in close proximity,
Yeah.
which is sometimes a little stressful. But I mean, like you must have some tips that you can give to people as far as that's concerned. But I'm kind of curious, because I find like the most interesting question I ask people like you who are like veterans of healing work and energy work and psychic things is how on earth did you get involved with it? Was there some moment of first experiencing and going, right, I gotta discover that?
No. I think for people like me, I think you realize you're different as a child, and you align yourself with other people who also have other versions of different.
Okay.
And you're not sure what the experience that why the experience you're having is different from the experience other people have, or that people seem to be expecting you to have. So usually those of us who are sensitive are repeatedly told as children to toughen up and not be so sensitive and to change.
Right.
And we're told very young that we should be different than we are. And so that becomes the end to that world. And that becomes, sorry, I'm just
I could see you scratching and moving. I totally get it.
I'm sitting cross-legged now. The way I was sitting was not working for this. So for me, I mean, my parents are great. They're creative people, but I still no one knew how to handle the fact that I was emotional and sensitive, and I guess I just observed things differently. And I had imaginary friends or whatever that was.
Right.
And, I had a lot of things going on that gets chalked up to like, oh, he's creative.
Right.
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 So you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I'm creative. And so I latched onto, oh, he's creative. I'll just be creative. And I studied fine art, and I went into that side of things. But for my whole life, have had people come to me and tell me what they're going through, what they're working on, what they're stressed about, even as a kid.
So just
and I remember, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just like to putting it in a frame is like you're different, and then you notice people approaching you differently to the way they approach other people, and in a way also other people didn't really know how to handle you in a way, like you're saying, like sensitive or emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a feeler. I'm a kinesthetic and
Right.
an emotional version of that.
Mm.
And I didn't know for a long time that some of the things I was experiencing were related to what we're calling energy work, or chi, or there's so many names for these types of things. But you know, I would see things, and I would not know what to do with that kind of side of myself either. So, you know, it makes sense that I went into the arts. It makes sense looking back in retrospect, like, oh, I understand now why I made these choices. I had tarot cards very young and things like that. I always gravitated towards the more bohemian hippie side of stuff, because you're accepted there. And then after school, I was a bartender, and I attracted a lot of interesting people who wanted to sit down, have a drink, and talk to me. And it was weird. There was a period then that I was like, why are all these crazy people coming to me? Like, what is, because I hadn't studied this stuff. I just was experiencing it at that point. Well, I mean, I studied a little bit of things, but I got in depth into hypnosis and in depth into psychic things.
Yeah.
In the broader world of that. And also, when I stopped bartending, I started performing psychic entertainment and magic and entertainment that relates to these abilities and thoughts and concepts. So the crux of all that was that I started having seizures and I had brain surgery. And really, that's like a defining moment.
You had seizures, like, okay, that's suddenly you've gone from being a bartender to being a stage magician to having seizures. And this was a crux.
Well, the big change for me of focusing on, I guess, what you're calling the energy side of things. I don't know what else to call it either. So
yeah,
energy work is good.
Yeah, it's the broadest term I could come up with.
Yeah. So it was already, those things were already there. But after I had brain surgery, after I had a sort of could have died, you know, went through that kind of experience, it changed me, and I was more open to it, and I more saw that it was me. I mean, that this is part of who I am, and then I just need to embrace it. And maybe it enhanced those abilities to some sense. I don't really know if it feels like it did, but I'm not sure. There's no way to quantize that, so I don't know. It's a good origin story.
I mean, if I can sum up, it sounds like you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then you had this moment of like, well, this could be the end of my life, and with the brain surgery and everything else.
Well, yeah, in recovering from it, I went and studied memory work in depth because I was worried, because I did have a period where memories were gone and then they would come back, and I'd go, what was this about? I was scared of losing memory. So I went and got very involved in that and healing things through positivity, because I had an experience where I met someone who went through the same surgery, the same condition, and she had, and I was a freelance person. She was a lawyer, so she had financial backing behind her, and when I met her, she was like, well, what do you talk about when you go to your recovery meetings? And I'm like, oh, sorry, what's that? Recovery? Because she had a
Right. She had
like
a
a
support system.
support group, and
Mm.
but she had so much stress and
Right.
anxiety. And when I
Right.
met her at that time, I was drinking a beer. And she's like, "Why are you drinking? You can't drink." And I was like, "Yeah, I can have one. So I'm having one." And
Right.
guess what? Sometimes I have two. It's
Right.
not going to kill me. I researched it, and I know I'm okay. Because we were on the same medication, and I've gotten myself off that medication. So I'm on no medication except vitamins, and she's dead.
Right.
She went into a coma. She stressed herself into a coma, I think.
Right. Right. So
She let the condition define her, and I mean, I'm sure if you looked into it, there are a lot more circumstances to it, but it was like, wow, okay, keep yourself uplifted. Look at joy, laugh, find laughter. These are important, and so within that experience, I started to learn hypnosis because I knew that somehow was going to help me.
yeah.
It did. And then I started to learn different forms of meditation. So it all kind of came together. And it's a process of self-realization and opening your unconscious. And in that process, I realized that I needed to be doing this work to help people, and that I see things that other people don't see.
Yeah, I think that's a good self-analysis. I think you've got a really good way of seeing things that very quickly that other people don't see. I remember, I think you met my son a couple of times, and I thought what you said to him was just like, wow, that's very astute. Which, I
don't remember what I said.
Yeah, I can't remember what you
But
said. I know
I'm
you
glad
said
it
something.
makes sense.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that was a good thing to say. Yeah. I'm kind of like stealthing you, because like I know that one thing you've said to me is you've been doing your psychic show, which is to a certain extent trickery. Is that fair to say? And then actually you've known the answers through a different way. Like you've psychically known the answers, which is very interesting, because you wouldn't be the first person to say that I forget the guy's name from the remote viewing.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And he did magic. He did magic. And he
not
said,
Dean Radin. He's the guy.
Dean Radin's a great guy.
Not Ingo Swann, but he talks about Ingo Swann a lot.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
third
Hal
eye.
Puthoff. Russell Targ.
Russell Targ. There you go.
I think so. Yeah.
That's right.
So yeah. So he talks about it. So
the guy with the Coke bottles on his eyes.
Yeah, legally blind driving a motorcycle. Yeah, that's about as psychic as you get.
Adaptive laser technology. Interesting person all around. Yes, he. So he tells the story, which is very true. The story he tells is that he was doing magic and mind reading magic, and then in that experience, he started to know things that he didn't understand how he knew, and he was like, "Well, there's something there," and that's so true. That does happen. And there's two sides to that community, and there's people who stay with the completely deception-based, physical
Brown kind of,
yeah, it's a psychological trick, but even that is a kind of tale as well, where it's really you could watch it and view it as a puzzle if you wanted to, and I don't like to do that. But that side of that community is split, and more than half of them align towards the skeptic side and don't open themselves to. So every time they have an experience that is psychic or energy or intuitive, they conflate it to be, what's the word the one that they like to bring up particularly is
Serendipity.
confirmation bias. Oh, it's confirmation bias. Oh, it's
right. Yep.
Everybody has that. It's coincidence of some form.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I don't really think there are those, like they're saying. I think it's more than that. Anyway, yes. My show is like, I set up circumstances where I can create an amazing experience. So some kind of punctuation happens, but within that, I give people readings and talk about in-depth things that I pick up, and hopefully give them a hint that there's more to it than people normally realize, and also just allow wonder to happen.
Well, you've given me a tarot reading and before, and
that's another thing, because that's just tarot reading.
That was interesting, but I'm curious because number one is like you recently had a Kickstarter, which is good. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to receiving the cards when they're there. But you've also written a book. Oh yeah, that's fine. You've written a book about pendulum work and dowsing, and that is like, I mean, dowsing is. I think there's so much energy work in dowsing. Is that available? Can people just Lulu it, or wow, it looks like it's a giant book. Okay, now I see your hand. I'm like, it's enormous.
No, it's there's two versions actually. The Lulu one is printing, a bound printing, and then I had a bunch of them printed locally that have spiral bound, which I actually quite like. So if people wanted the spiral bound one, they can order it directly from me. You have to message me for that. But I like it because I have some pendulum charts in here. And when I find them, I'll show you what I mean. And you can, with the spiral bound, you can turn the book back around and you can have your pendulum chart to do your pendulum work. But on the other one, there actually is a chart printed on the back, so you can use that too. So here's what I think. I think that dowsing and pendulum work is a gateway to unlocking and opening people up to this kind of experience who've never had it.
Okay.
Because as soon as that thing starts to work by their intention, so that they are thinking, go in a circle when I teach people to do this. So if I think, go in a circle, this will start to go in a circle. And all I'm doing is thinking, go in a circle. And if you're viewing this now and you've never done this before, go pick one up, go get a piece of thread and tie a ring to it. Any weight on a string will do this. And if you ask it to go in a circle in your mind, and the best way to do that is to actually in your mind think, oh, crystal, please spin in a circle.
Right.
And it will start to do that. And then if you ask it to go left and right, and if I start talking about, see, it already did it, it'll start to do that. And there's lots of ways to talk about what's happening. If it's a ideomotor response of my mind unconsciously controlling my arm, yes. But where that's coming from is a deeper mystery, and that's what the book explores. It teaches you how to do it, and it teaches you a bunch of sort of games you can play with yourself. Where
what is the most, like, I'm one of these people that so many things have happened to me that I'm so convinced of energy work. So I love to ask you, like, Uri Geller would use pendulums to go and find little capsules of oil that had been like distributed on Menorca, I think it was. Yeah, and he found them all using dowsing.
He's an interesting guy.
But for you, what has been like, it doesn't have to be, I think it's useful if it's something you've actually experienced and you're speaking from your first-hand experience, but what convinced you about that modality where you went like, yes?
It's kind of different for me.
Okay.
When I was a kid, and I watched Star Wars, think the first one I saw, I think I saw it out of order. I think I saw The Empire Strikes Back first, because the one that affected me was Luke Skywalker in the ice cave, and he's reaching out, and then the lightsaber comes into his hand.
Yep.
And then, no, I must have seen him, whatever. And then the idea that you could think something and then a person would react to that thought. You know, these are not the droids you're looking for. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw that you could do some of that. I saw that happening in the real world. But then later in life, I questioned it all. I became, for a period, very skeptical. And I went through a period where I was like, well, it's all confirmation bias. Oh, well, it's all coincidence. You can explain everything. Everything is scientific and it can be explained. I had that side. And then I started to do, I guess I just started to do things that we could say law of attraction wise were just way too spot on to be anything but energy aligning to what I'm intending.
Yeah.
So that weirded me out. And then but that's what it goes back to this brain surgery experience and the, recovery, and realizing, oh, I'm healing myself, and oh, I'm seeing myself in a different context.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
And then, so there was a period of time when my grandmother died, my father's mother. We were quite close, in that we got each other. And I was actually studying painting in France whenever she died, but I was in tune with it, and there was some sort of feeling there that I know was real. And so I had lots of her stuff because she was really into her house was very Asian influenced, and a mix of Japanese and Chinese, and mostly Japanese and Chinese, Tibetan stuff too. She lived in Japan for a period. My grandfather was there with the military, and my dad was in Japan for a bit as a kid. And so in her house was all this Asian stuff. I had never been to Asia at this point. Didn't know much about things except for from art history. And when we took things from her collection, I had some Chinese paintings that I liked and things that I put on my wall. And so I had this sort of arrangement on my wall. My spaces I've always ended up becoming like altars. And the one right next to my bed was like a Chinese scene with a person in a boat and a flower and a misty mountain. And there was other Asian stuff. And I wasn't intending to focus on that. It just happened. And then I started to perform in a Japanese restaurant. And then I started to be booked for more events with Asian groups. And I met my wife because she booked me for her birthday party. And then that ended up in her being asked to come work in Hong Kong. And she asked, well, would you like to do that? And I said, I can come and visit Hong Kong and see. So all the, and then it was me sitting here in Hong Kong going, I made that happen in a weird way. Like, I arranged my energy towards focusing on, oh, I'd like to do that. And I realized even I'd done it before that at one point, thinking I'd like to live somewhere outside of America and experience immersion in other cultures. So that was an intention, but I wasn't like trying to do that.
Yeah.
It just kind of came to me. And then when I realized that, I went, oh, I'm going to do that more. So I came about understanding these kinds of things by them happening and then realizing that I've done that.
So you do use the dowsing to kind of like find out where you are? Is that?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, I went away from dowsing on that whole. Sure, because you asked like where do I see energy work happening? That's what the answer is.
Yeah,
That was a
kind
big
of.
experience.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
but it's okay. I mean, like, I think hearing what you're saying, it gives me, it's interesting for me, and I think it's interesting for people to hear. So,
well, I wouldn't say that dowsing is the place where I have a huge experience of energy stuff. I mean, it works. I use dowsing to understand if something is a better decision, to guide myself on health, to guide myself on the business decisions and things like that. It's very helpful.
right.
Finding balance. If I'm conflicted and I don't know the answer within myself, or I could see both sides, it'll help finding the answer that way. And finding lost things. It's really good for that. But yeah, I thought you just meant in general where energy stuff.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what you gave me, but it's good. I mean, I actually know that the certain armed forces use dowsing. So if you're
Sure.
doing survival training, that they're going to teach you how to douse, because being able to find water, or even using the power of the subconscious mind to find the nearest road, or whatever. These are really useful things, because I'm not sure that everybody is able to connect, but if they can, it's an incredible tool. It's just an incredible tool.
Here's what I believe. I believe everybody is able to connect, but a lot of people need to do a little work to sort of unlock that for themselves.
Right.
So if they don't do that work, if they don't practice on some way, then they're not going to become able to connect. But they have the capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Brilliant. Is there? I'm just thinking. We've kind of covered a lot of things. Has there ever been moments? This is one for me. So, because I can. Have there been moments where you've been a little bit ashamed of energy work? And because I think I have. I think I've been like, oh, I just want to be normal. I don't want to own up to this.
I'm sure there have been moments where I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
Yes, there have been those moments. But generally, I go the opposite direction. I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to be me.
Yeah, I've seen you do that. I really like it. Kind of surprised me.
I'm going to have a big curly mustache. What have you seen that you're thinking of?
With you, I think you just said to somebody like straight out something like, I think it was like the landmark course or something. You'd said, "Oh, did you do the landmark course?" And you're like,
yes.
And he's like, he went pale, and it's like, how did you know? And he says, because you use certain words. Actually, it wasn't psychic. He said, this is not psychic. You use certain words.
Yeah, he used terminology that I understood was from that. But yeah. No, I just trust myself. And that's similar to what a reading is. When you do tarot or oracles of any sort, you just trust it and you go with, and very rarely is it like, no, not at all, or what are you talking about? And usually people are like, yeah, exactly. And the only times that I end up with strong no's, it's with people who are very about the whole experience. And I'm like, why do you want to do this if you're not opening yourself up to the experience?
Right.
If you close yourself off, it's going to affect the whole thing. So open your mind.
Open your mind, yeah. Has there been, I'm sort of drawing to a close, but I'd like to ask, because I mean, I can think of
just getting started.
I can think of an anecdote where we were doing the most simple remote viewing practices. Like I hadn't really shown you anything, like according to the books and everything, but you picked up on a target and you described you nailed the target. I gave you a few numbers, I think, and then
I
you
think
started.
the first one we did was a car.
Right. I can't even
I
remember.
remember there. Yeah, I remember I drew a picture of a car and a shell, and there was some other, like a container of some sort. And it turned out to be an F1 car sponsored by Shell Oil. And like that's what made me go, oh, yep, I believe in remote viewing, and I believe I could do it. That's great. And I've had lovely experiences with it. And I pretty quickly in experience, because I was always frustrated with the protocol, but I do think it's important to have somebody else.
Right.
It's hard to do alone.
The monitor job, yeah.
Monitor is really important. I would like to work on that more. But yeah, remote viewing is fantastic. And what I was going at there is I was like, the whole thing about things, I get what it's about, but I don't feel like it's needed. That was weird.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the genius of the remote viewing is that it was designed to teach anybody to do.
Anybody, yeah.
And there's no, I was talking with Lynn.
And I recommend everybody go on wherever you can purchase it or view it and see Third Eye Spies, which is the movie that talks about how remote viewing started and everything. It's really amazing.
Very,
and
very
to see
good movie,
when you see the workshops he's doing with people and how accurate people who've never done this before are getting, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I was saying to Lynn, what for me, what convinced me wasn't him; it was my sessions. What I did convinced me, because I was coming up with results. I knew stuff. I just knew it, and I couldn't really. There was no big psychicness to it. There was no drums and trumpets and angels, and crystals. It was just I just know that. But have you had any other strange experiences?
Oh, all kinds.
Unexplainable.
They become commonplace for me.
Right.
There are lots of little. I had an amazing, beautiful one the other day. In my hypnotherapy, I do a thing called mindscaping, which we've done, I think, twice.
Wonderful technique, Mindscape.
I love mindscaping, and I was doing a mindscape with a client recently, and in her mindscape, her personification of a goal ended up being a old square rig ship, and with tall sails, like a tall sail ship, tall ship. And she described it. It was very familiar to me. As she described it, it got weirder and weirder. I told her to put a masthead on it to make it, hers, and she put a unicorn on the masthead, and she described the captain as a big, dark bearded big man who was jolly and wore a particular type of hat and the whole thing. And I held my tongue as she was doing the mindscape, because I don't want to influence things. But I also was looking around my studio to make sure there wasn't a photograph of my uncle's ship somewhere, or that I think back that I talk about that, so it wasn't my direct influence. Yeah. Because what she had described in her hypnotic experience was exactly the tall ship that my uncle worked on as a training for underprivileged children. Would instead of putting them in juvenile detention, they would join the
Right.
crew of the Unicorn. It was called the Unicorn. It had a unicorn masthead.
You're
Her
kidding.
description of the captain was exactly what he looked like. I was like, oh my God. And it's actually the ship card in my Oracle deck as well. So I spend a lot of time thinking about it. It's a good image for me.
Right.
She blew her mind when I explained all this to her, and I was like, it's lovely. And so but that happens all the time. A guy was in here doing the shaking the sticks Chinese fortune telling thing, and I was in the other room, and one fell and he picked it up, and I said, is it 45? And he said, how the hell did you know? I don't, I just knew, and I just trusted it and said it. And I've had experiences with my aunt and my uncle and my grandmother and family members who passed on, and so I know that there's stuff.
Wow, that's cool.
I've had lots of stuff.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks, mate. Look, I really appreciate you coming on. I want to make a big shout out for your work. As I say, like your hypnotherapy work is great. Definitely felt for me when I had it.
I've been doing longer term sessions lately. I've been doing like block 5 for people as a coaching session, and some people do repeated blocks because what I experience is that when people come for one thing, and that unlocks a realization of something else, and then they realize that there's a whole lot of stuff that they can work on, and that it's going to help multiple things that maybe they weren't in the beginning, maybe they weren't ready to admit. That's usually the case. Somebody comes in and they're like, I really don't want to be, I really want to be able to give presentations. And in the experience, we find out where that fear comes from. And then it goes into, healing from child abuse. There's all kinds of stuff that can happen that people don't want to admit. And then it opens it up and they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that being connected. So,
It's true. Yeah.
But on things to plug, my book on pendulum magic, beginner pendulum magic, you can get on Lulu. You can look at stuartpalm.com is my website. You can find it there, all the links to things.
Are you doing, bearing in mind, like everybody's stuck at home, are you doing any distance sessions? Yeah.
I am working on doing a regular distance meditation workshop. I'm calling it mindlessness.
Yeah, I like mindfulness.
I think we have enough mindfulness. Let's have some mindlessness.
You took my joke.
There's more to it than that. It's based on Raja Yoga and transcendental meditation and some other things in there, but I find it very effective.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do some workshops on that, and you can, if you follow me on Facebook, I'll be posting there. So just Stuart Palm. Look for Stuart Palm. Is my studio is called Third Sight Studio, so I'll post there as well. On Instagram, I'm at Psychic Entertainer, so you can find me on the Instagram. But whatever, throw an intention and I'll find you.
You've got a website. That's
StuartPalm.com.
Okay,
ThirdSightStudio.com is also, you can also find me there.
Excellent.
And brilliant. I could keep talking about stuff, but
fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving everybody.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, giving everybody your experiences, your wisdom, your knowledge, and
my mindlessness.
Yeah, exactly. Encouraging people to just to get over themselves a little bit about this energy thing. It's it's everywhere, it's everything, and
there was the first question on the thing where you were asking questions was, what did you first experience or start? And I think that for me, I always experienced energy work. It's just cutting yourself off from it or turning yourself onto it. Turn yourself onto it, you'll see it everywhere, and you'll open yourself up to all kinds of stuff. And unconscious work, trance work, meditation, these are things that help strengthen that and open that.
True. Well, thanks
Probably
very much.
psychedelics too, but I don't want to go there.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm going to ask everybody to subscribe and go and check Stuart out, and go and check out his podcast, which is Mysterious Worlds. It's actually super, and I've been on there a couple of times. But he gets fantastic guests, very interesting people, and very, very different. All right.
If you search Mysterious World on Stitcher or Apple Podcasts or whatever the other ones are, you'll find it.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks again.
Bye.